Welcome! Today we're going to be doing solving systems of equations by elimination. You'll have some notes that are attached to your assignment, but I have the important ones off to the side here, which will walk us through each step. We're going to do 4 examples today, so follow along with me. You can do the examples as we go through them. That can be pretty helpful, just like being in a classroom. Alright, so we got our first system here, number 2. Our first step is we look for variables with the same or opposite coefficient. And we have a step here that says if you can't find one, multiply one or both equations. Today, you're going to be dealing with equations that have the same coefficient or they might be opposite coefficients. So you're going to be in pretty good shape. Let's take a look here. So I'm looking at my variables. I have x and y. If I take a look at x, you will notice that I have 4x and negative 4x. Those coefficients are opposites. The coefficient is the number being multiplied by the variable. We've got negative 4 and positive 4. So those are going to be the coefficients I focus on. So those are the ones I've identified. My second step is to add or subtract vertically to eliminate one variable. So if I look here, if I do positive 4x minus 4x, I'm going to get 0. So 4x plus negative 4x gives me 0x. The x's are gone. They're eliminated. I like that. I'm going to do 8y plus 10y. 8y plus 2y. A little foreshadowing. I get 10y. And then I'm going to even put little plus signs here so I know what I'm doing. 20 plus negative 30 is going to give me negative 10. So I get 10y equals negative 10. You'll notice that leaves me with just one variable now instead of the 2 I started with. My third step is solve for the remaining variable. To get y alone, I'm going to divide each side by 10. I get y equals negative 10 divided by 10 equals negative 1. Now, you might think you're done. You're not. You've only solved for y. You still have to solve for x. It says substitute my solution and solve the remaining variable. Here's what I want to do, and I'm going to toss this off to the side a little bit so I have some space. I can use either of these two equations that I started out with. I could either use 4x plus 8y equals 20, or I could go with negative 4x plus 2y equals negative 30. Doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go with the first one here. So I'm going to rewrite it, 4x plus 8y equals 20. And now since I have a solution for y, I'm going to substitute that. So I get 4x plus 8 times negative 1 equals 20. So I substitute the y with my negative 1. And I solve this like a two-step equation. 8 times 1 gives me negative 8 equals 20. So I get 4x plus negative 8 equals 20. I'm going to add positive 8 to each side. I get 4x equals 28. Divide each side by 4. I get a solution for x of 7. And I am done. I've completed this problem. So I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. So I have a solution for x. I have a solution for y. And I can even write these as an ordered pair now. Now remember, ordered pairs are written in the order of x, y. So I can even write my solution as 7, negative 1, just like so. And I'm done. That's how you solve a system using elimination. Oops. Go all the way back up to the top here. Again, using our steps, look for variables with the same or opposite coefficients, cancel that variable out, solve for the remaining variable, and then substitute it back in. I'm going to try number 4 now. Notice I have the steps right off this side here. I'm going to shrink down my work just so I can have the steps a bit more handy, have a little more space for them. And what I recommend doing is do these problems as I do it. Don't go back and redo them. You have me doing them with you, so might as well copy them. Nothing wrong with doing that. It's good practice. All right, so let's take a look here. We're looking for variables with the same or opposite coefficient. Now, we got lucky this time. Again, the x's have the same or opposite coefficients. This works out. We have negative 6x and positive 6x. If I add those, they're going to cancel out. That's awesome. So it happened with the first one. It's not always going to be that way. It just happened to be that x worked out in these cases. So let's rock these through now. All right, so I'm going to add these going across. Negative 6x plus positive 6x gives me 0x. They cancel out. I like that. 5y plus 4y gives me 9y. 1 plus negative 10 gives me negative 9. So now I'm going to divide each side by 9, and I get y equals negative 1. All right, I'm halfway done. Now I just have to substitute that value into one of these equations. Really doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go with the first one again. When in doubt, go with the first one. So negative 6x plus 5y equals 1. I'm going to substitute that y in now. So 5 times negative 1 equals 1. Let's solve this out. So negative 6x, it's going to stay the same. 5 times negative 1 gives me negative 5. And then I've got 1 over here. So now to isolate x, I'm going to add 5 to each side. I get negative 6x equals positive 6. I'm going to divide each side by negative 6. And I get a solution of x equals negative 1. So I've got my solution here. Sometimes x and y are going to be the same. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. So I've got my answers for x and y, and I can once again write that as an ordered pair. Negative 1, negative 1. There you go. So hopefully this is helping you a little bit. We're going to do 2 more. I'm going to bring my steps on down so that way I have them here. Again, you guys have access to the notes. Okay, let's do this. All right, now let's take a look. All right, so we're looking for variables with the same or opposite coefficients. 8x, negative 3y. Those aren't the same. I can't do the x's this time. X is not an option. However, if I look at my y's, I've got y. And if you use a coefficient, you can put 1 in front of them. It's the same. So I can use these. However, if I try to use addition this time, it's not going to work. I'm going to get, all right, 5x, and then 1y plus 1y gives me 2y. I haven't eliminated anything. That's no help. You have to find a way to eliminate it. And here's how you can eliminate it. If you can't add, try subtraction. So I'm going to look here. I'm going to subtract these. I'm going to subtract these. I'm going to subtract these. 8x minus negative 3x. 2 negatives give me a positive. So I'm going to get 11x. Subtracting a negative means I'm going to be adding. Now I have 1y plus negative 11 or minus 1y. That cancels out my y's. I'm in good shape here. That's awesome. Now I get negative 16 minus negative 5. Again, these 2 negatives, you're subtracting a negative. It's going to make it positive. Negative 16 plus 5 gives me negative 11. It works out in our favor because we divide each side by 11. We get x equals negative 1. For the examples you're going to be doing today, you're going to be getting whole numbers. You shouldn't be getting fractions. If you are, go back and check your work. So now I've solved for x this time. My goal is now I have to plug in x and solve for y. I can use either of these equations that I just used. I'm going to go with the top one. 8x plus y with negative 16. I'm going to plug in my negative 1 for x because that's what I solved for here. And now I'm solving for y. 8 times negative 1 gives me negative 8 plus y equals negative 16. I'm going to add 8 to each side, and I get an answer of y equals negative 8. I'm going to write my final answer as an ordered pair. Remember, ordered pairs are in order of x and y. So I can do negative 1, negative 8. And I've solved that. That's the third one I've done here. So sometimes you might not necessarily be able to add your coefficients. You might have to subtract them. The goal is you're canceling something out. Remember, if I would have added 1y plus 1y, that would give me 2y, and that's not canceling anything out. We want to cancel stuff out, make it easier, right? All right, we're going to do one more together, number 7. Let's see. Okay, we go with the first one here. We've got the same coefficients. So what am I going to do this time? If I add these, that's not going to cancel it out. -6 plus -6 does not give me a positive answer, or it doesn't cancel them out. Or if I subtract everything, it's going to work. -6 minus -6. Minus a negative ends up being positive, right? These cancel out. I like that. 6y minus 3y gives me 3y. 6 minus -12. Again, minus a negative. Going to be plus a positive. So 6 plus 12 gives me 18. Divide each side by 3. I get y equals 6. So I solved for y this time. So now I can substitute my y value into either of the equations. I'm going to go with the first one again. By default, why not? So I'm going to rewrite it. Now since I have a value for y, I'm going to substitute it in. Negative 6x plus 6 times 6 equals 6. Let's see how it works. 6 times 6 gives me 36. I'm going to subtract 36 from each side. 6 minus 36, that's going to give me negative 30. I got negative 6x equals negative 30. Divide each side by negative 6. When you divide two negatives, you're going to get a positive answer. X equals positive 5. So you can rewrite your answers in ordered pair. A lot of teachers like you to do that. It's a good practice to get into. Remember, when you're writing an ordered pair, it goes x and then y. So we would get 5 and 6. So we just did 4 problems. We did essentially half of this. So you're going to be left to do the next 4 problems. So just follow these steps. Remember, look for variables with the same or opposite coefficients. If you can't find one, multiply one or both equations. You're not going to use that strategy here. You're just looking for variables with the same or opposite coefficients. Then add or subtract vertically to eliminate one variable. Sometimes we had to add, sometimes we had to subtract. You solve for the remaining variable, and then you substitute the solution and solve for the remaining variable. So we have 4 examples here to help you out. Use these 4 examples to complete the other 4.